Good evening and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Tuesday, June 12, 2012. I'm Tony Paniagua. The polls for the special election at U.S. Congressional District 8 will be closing in just a few minutes at 7 o'clock, and we'll have continuing coverage on our website, Arizona Public Media, as well as our sister radio station, KUAZ. We'll also have the latest on the election tomorrow night at 6:30 right here on Arizona Illustrated. But we begin tonight with the nation's changing demographics. New census figures indicate that the Latino population is growing rapidly, and companies are trying to improve their marketing and advertising campaigns to reach this ethnic group. Whether you call it lots of money or mucho dinero, many merchants are trying to make some extra cash in the process. Luis Carrion has that story.
According to figures recently released based on the 2010 census, Hispanics accounted for more than half of the U.S. population increase over the past 10 years. This marks a new census population milestone by reaching 50 million, the equivalent of 1 in 6 Americans.
The demographics, the growth, several states in the U.S. in the next 20 years are going to be majority Hispanic. I'm going to San Diego tomorrow.
Felipe Garcia is someone that follows closely the shifting demographics of southern Arizona, as well as other states around the country where the Latino population is growing.
I'm vice president of strategic partnerships and Mexico marketing with the Metro Tucson Convention and Visitor Bureau. But it's at the
A large part of Garcia's job deals with making Arizona an attractive destination for consumers and industry from Mexico. He says this market is growing as the Mexican economy continues to gain strength. However, he points out that the buying power of Latinos residing within the United States is also growing at an exponential pace.
The Hispanic population in the U.S., it will be the 15th largest economy in the world, and it's already here. Our companies ready, they're adapting and services, and not only people selling, but TV stations, newspapers. I think we need to change.
Garcia says change is inevitable, and according to him, success will come to those businesses that are nimble and able to adapt to the shifting demographics.
Our businesses are ready. They're making the right changes at their companies, at big corporations, so that they can adapt to that consumer, their shopping patterns, the reason why they're buying product. Is not only about putting a sign in Spanish and saying, oh, hablamos español. That's not the miracle solution. It's not putting the Virgin of Guadalupe in a piñata or something that's a stereotype. That's not the solution either. You have to really understand that market and really understand the reasons why they're shopping.
There are a lot of cultural aspects to marketing to the Hispanic community, and we want to stick with these prices.
Leah Marquez Peterson is the president of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. She says businesses have come to realize the importance of marketing to the Hispanic market, and her organization provides services to a broad range of members.
And certainly people do not have to be Hispanic or speak Spanish to participate. Of our 1,000-member businesses, about 65 to 70% are Hispanic-owned or managed businesses. We have a lot of businesses, mainstream Tucson, working with the general market that realize with this fast-growing trend, they need to be looking at their own business plans and marketing efforts on how to reach the fast-growing Hispanic market.
Marquez Peterson says the 2012 report by the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, titled Datos, pegs the Hispanic purchasing power in the state at an all-time high of $40 billion. It also highlights Mexico's role as a critical and growing trade partner.
The information in the Datos report is particularly valuable because it talks about consumer trends, consumer behavior, the internet usage, the use of cell phones and texting, and some very specific things that can be very valuable to the business community.
The data seems clear, and businesses are adapting to the growing Hispanic market.
So let's do that.
Garcia says that as demographics shift, it's important for businesses to recognize the diversity of the Hispanic market and resist the temptation to place all Hispanics under one homogenized category.
I think we're more like a salad, in the sense that you have the tomatoes and the carrots and the lettuce. It all mixes and combines and makes a nice salad, but every pizza is different. It's not a melting pot. It's not uniform. It's not the same for everyone. Again, yes, Hispanics now more and more are speaking English. They will watch the Super Bowl, but they love the World Cup. So you need to fine-tune your approach to those consumers.
Garcia says in 2010, Hispanic purchasing power in the U.S. reached $1.04 trillion, and it's expected to reach $1.5 trillion by 2015.
Even though the Latino population is growing rapidly in many regions, they are often underrepresented in key commercial and political roles. But community activists are trying to change that. Many groups are encouraging more Latinos to register to vote and have their voices heard in local, state, and federal governments. For more on this, we are joined by Leticia de la Vara. She is the director of One Arizona, a coalition which supports civic engagement. And joining her is Brianda Bustamante, a voter drive volunteer with Mi Familia Vota. Leticia and Brianda, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So let's begin with you, Leticia. Briefly, what is One Arizona all about?
Well, One Arizona is a statewide coalition of 12 nonprofits, and we engage in civic engagement specifically to turn out the low-propensity Latino vote. So folks who have not been talked to, have not been a part of the process. And we do that through our 12 partners with citizenship fairs, door-to-door knocking, and site-based events of registering people to vote, getting them on the mail-in ballot list, and also letting them know that there's leadership opportunity. We have phenomenal volunteers who could become those next elected officials. So we do the full spectrum of civic engagement.
Okay, now I'll ask you a little bit about the history of One Arizona in a second, but let me ask you, Brianda, you're only 21 years old and you're already knocking on doors as a volunteer, asking people to become engaged. Why so?
I've been involved with doing stuff like this since I was 13. The thing that really got me into it is when things like SB 1070 started happening. That's when I really realized that obviously the Latino community wasn't being heard, because I don't believe anybody wants a bill like SB 1070. So that's what really got me engaged with this, and that's why I go knocking on people's doors, getting the young community, getting people who are not registered to vote yet, getting them to register to vote so our voice can be heard.
And Brianda was mentioning SB 1070. I was about to ask you that. You were telling me that One Arizona was born because of SB 1070.
Right. SB 1070 was really the impetus for these 12 organizations to come together and say, look, this is an issue that affects us across the state. Wherever you are in Phoenix, in Tucson, in Nogales, in Yuma, you're going to feel the brunt of this law. And the best thing that we can do is make sure that folks don't use this as another reason to turn away. This was really an attack to make people feel uncomfortable. And we're countering that with saying, look, this is our state. We have strong roots. We have strong history here. And we're going to make sure that we're out there and we're letting our elected officials know that we are what Arizona is. You need to look at who we are and make sure you're representing us with legislation that truly benefits the state. So in 2010, we were started and turned out over 90,000 new Latino votes to the polls in Arizona. So really doing a huge service to Arizona, making sure our citizens are out there engaged, holding their elected officials accountable. And we plan to do that again in 2012. So
Leticia, what is the problem, if you will, with SB 1070? I have had conversations outside of work where people say, so if you're a citizen, who cares? If somebody pulls you over, show your papers and tell that officer or prove to the officer that you are here legally.
Right. I think on the surface that sounds like a very simple request. But I think if you think about it, how often have you taken a jog around the neighborhood or run to the store to get milk because you forgot to get the night before, and you grab your keys and you go? With this law, you could do that, and you could find yourself face down on the floor in your own neighborhood trying to explain to someone who may have what they feel is enough suspicion to warrant you being there. That's not what America is about. That you don't question someone because they look a certain way. It's fundamentally a wrong way to go about building communities of trust between our law enforcement officers and our citizens.
And Brianda, how do you go about your business insofar as getting more people engaged in the political process? Are you knocking door to doors, visiting different places?
We get packets. The packets contain 60 to 80 doors. We walk into the communities that we feel that have the most Latino community, the most Latino population. We go door to door and we try to get them to register to vote by mail. That way it will be more certain that they will actually send their vote, and their vote will be counted.
And have you found a nice reception along the way, or are people apathetic?
Every door I've gone to, everybody is so happy. They're like, yes, I want to get my ballot through mail, because last year I wasn't able to vote because something happened and I couldn't go to the polling locations. This way, it's a for sure thing that they can vote. They get it 26 days early. They can get educated on whatever they don't know, and the people love it. They think it's the best thing for them.
And Leticia, for the politicians that say they were legitimately concerned about illegal immigration, unauthorized immigration, So SB 1070 was not the response, obviously, was not the way to try to accomplish that.
Right. SB 1070 overburdens an already burdened police system, city to city. That immigration is an issue the United States needs to confront collectively. We should not be putting up different borders around every state. This is an issue that's bigger than Arizona. This is an issue that impacts families, it impacts businesses, it impacts neighborhoods, and we can't drive one area and assume that the police are going to understand that and be more respectful of citizens' rights, and then drive to another and worry about whether or not, if we made a left-hand turn, if someone's going to be right behind us asking why we made that left-hand turn. It's just too burdensome for police departments. It's too burdensome for educators. It's too burdensome for families to wonder, which way should I feel safe? You should feel safe wherever you are.
And then, of course, we're talking about voter registration. Brianda, how do you think voter turnout is going to be this fall, based on your conversations?
Based on my conversation, I think we're going to have a really good turnout. Like I said, we do, I've talked to a lot of people. We also do citizenship workshops, and people who have done, who have turned in their paperwork and everything can be actually eligible to be a citizen and be able to vote this coming November. And everybody is just excited. Everybody's telling me, I want to go vote. I want to my voice be heard. So I really do think we're going to have a good turnout, because I've gotten nothing but positive responses.
And you, Leticia, same thing?
Brianda and I were actually talking before this, and the same thing. Folks are really motivated. They're really energized, and we're a younger population. Our average age is not even a voting age. When you look at census data, we're about 15, 16 years of age. So we're a younger group. We've traditionally been ignored by both parties as far as outreach. And what Brianda does and other volunteers, it's time intensive. We're going out there knocking on doors of folks who have never had a politician come to their office and saying this, or come to their house and saying, you need to be here. And the folks are saying, yeah, we want to be there. So we're finally making that connection, and people are feeling like this is my chance, not just for me, but for my children and for my family and for my role as an Arizonan. I'm going to be here and I'm going to vote.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In June 1812, the young United States declared war on the greatest power in the world, Great Britain. Americans fought the British, Canadian colonists, and native nations in a bitter conflict that shaped North America.
Tuesday at 8 on PBS HD, Arizona Public Media.
Senior citizens who are trying to settle a consumer complaint, are facing foreclosure, need advice with end-of-life issues or other topics, can turn to a local organization that has been around since the 1960s. Next, Mark McLemore has an interview with the senior rights advocate at Pima Council on Aging to tell us more about her work.
And joining me now to talk about the work her department does in helping seniors find out about their rights and get the help they need, we've got Jennifer Walker. She's been with the Pima Council on Aging for 16 years now in the 15 years, I'm sorry, in the position of senior advocate. So tell us exactly, what does your department deal with? What services do you offer?
Well, thank you, Mark, very much, first of all, for inviting me to speak. We talk to folks about consumer issues, about problems with housing, problems with utilities. They may need help getting their living wills and healthcare powers of attorney done. We have a contract with legal aid, and we can refer them to legal aid. We can refer them to our elder law clinic. In January through April 15th is my favorite time of year, because we help folks with this wonderful program called the Property Tax Credit Rebate. And in that program, we can help people get a significant portion of their taxes returned to them, in addition to which renters can even get some money back. So practically anything that people call about, I can try to help. I've helped a woman not too long ago with getting her mailbox repositioned on her house. So we try to accept any request for help. If it's doable, we try to accept that request for help.
Do you think that part of the issue is that seniors often have trouble getting people to listen to them?
Yes, I think that's part of the trouble, and I think the other part of the trouble is we live in a really complicated world now. And unfortunately, a lot of us, as we get older, people don't want to pay attention to us. They think that we're infirm, or we're cranky, or we're just crabby, or we have an unreasonable request, and it's often not an unreasonable request at all.
What kind of special issues do you think impact the lives of seniors in regard to housing? What sort of things have you gotten involved in, say, in the last few months?
Well, right now what we're having a big problem with is folks just don't have enough money to be able to remain where they are. And moving when you're 80 is really hard. And so they can't pay the rent, or an emergency came up with their medical care. They had to make a payment to the hospital, so they didn't pay the rent. Or their house is being repossessed, and they sat there and sat there and sat there, and suddenly they got a notice that the sheriff's coming tomorrow to take them out of the house. So it's mostly money right now. People don't have enough money to pay rent. Other things take priorities like health care, and people aren't even able to take care of paying their mortgages. So it's really sad. We have helped several folks out in the last few weeks with paying their rent. That would be a good example of that kind of thing that we've been able to help with.
If a senior is in an assisted living situation and they come to you for help, what sort of advice can you give them? Can your department deal with their issues?
Well, if somebody's in an assisted living facility and the complaint is with the assisted living facility, I would refer them to another department within Pima Council on Aging. It's called the Pima Council on Aging Ombudsman, and that's the long-term care ombudsman. They help with assisted living complaints, with nursing home complaints, adult care home complaints. Unless the problem is not to do with the assisted living facility. Otherwise, we can't help them. But if they bought something that they don't like, then we would probably help them with that.
Well, tell me how many members, how many staff members do you have in your department?
There are 4 of us, and one of the women who is full-time is completely bilingual and bicultural. So another woman who's half-time is also bilingual and bicultural. So we are able to help people in a lot of areas. Plus, both of these bilingual, bicultural women go out into the community and meet with seniors where they are, on the south side and the west side of town.
Do you have an estimate how many cases your department has handled in, say, the last year?
On average, our department handles 350 cases per month. That's 3.5 people handling 350 cases per month. And in the month of January, which was our heavy month, we had over 400. So we have pretty high numbers. Yeah.
If there's a senior watching right now, or someone has a senior in their life that they think could benefit from these services, how can they contact you?
The best way for folks to contact Pima Council on Aging is to go through our central intake department. They would call 790-7262, and they would be screened by one of our 4 central intake folks. Those people get the name, address, date of birth, and they get an idea, a sense of what's going on, so they can prioritize it, because otherwise we take the calls in the order in which they come. So if your call came in last Monday, I would probably have been working on it last Friday. Unless it's an emergency, it wouldn't get called right away. It would get called probably in a week or so.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for doing this work and continuing to help those in our community who are underserved and sometimes whose voices aren't heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
A number of Sunbelt communities, including Tucson, have been grappling with the topic of population growth and development for many decades, because many residents often don't see eye to eye on the best course of action for the future. Recently, local leaders asked the question as part of a survey: how should our region grow? And thousands of residents have responded. Andrea Kelly has this interview.
Joining us in the studio now is Patrick Hartley, Program Director with Imagine Greater Tucson, and Beth Walkup, Interim Executive Director with Imagine Greater Tucson. Thank you both for coming in today.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the survey that you have just completed. You surveyed bunches of Tucson area people. But let's backtrack. What was the survey, and how many people took it? Let's start with you, Beth.
Well, I think we need to start even further back than that, because our whole process has been to draw from the community what they think this community should be like over the next 40 years or so. And so we started with a series of surveys that helped us find out what the values are that the bulk of the people in this community support. And then we moved them into a mapping process. And now we've done this online survey. And Patrick has been the one that's pulling all of the details and the information together. But altogether, we believe that we've touched over 10,000 people, and we have our ability to contact them back.
Great. And Patrick, what were you asking people to comment on or respond to in the survey?
So the survey was the third step in this broader process that we've been doing, and it's really looking at how could this region grow under the potential that we might add an additional 1 million residents and 500,000 jobs. So it was really organized around these 4 distinct growth scenarios for our future, which are kind of internally consistent representatives or concepts of different ways of approaching growth in this community, starting with the status quo or kind of business as usual approach to growth, all the way to a more compact urban approach to growth and development. And then we asked several additional questions really to help us refine what those responses could be, knowing that each of these scenarios were really conceptual in nature, not intended as a blueprint or for the future of the community.
Okay. And what were some of the results? What did people tell you they wanted to see? How did they want the area to grow?
Mm-hmm. Well, the majority of respondents actually chose that fourth alternative scenario, which was the most compact urban of the alternatives that were on offer. Additionally, one of the things that really drove that choice we found in the survey was a concern for environmental areas. They wanted clean air, access to sustainable and clean water resources, and to conserve some of our land, some of our ecosystems in the area.
So just as a follow-up, the most compact model for growth, that means maybe doing some urban infill and building up instead of out, correct?
Yes.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the 4 scenarios you asked people to choose from.
And what was interesting is not only that was just consistent throughout the results, no matter what the age group, no matter the area of the community, because we could sort it by where people lived, and that they all really felt the same was a real surprise to me.
Anything you wanted to add about the surprises or what you expected?
I think it was a surprising amount of consistency across the region. So we organized the data into these 11 subregions, roughly representing areas that we thought were economically and geographically similar. For example, in the Northwest on the I-10 corridor, Midtown, downtown Tucson are 2 examples of the ones we did. And in all cases, we saw people in support of that fourth alternative. We saw those environmental priorities coming to the top. And also really a desire for greater choice in the urban environment that we're offering in this community. There's a lot of desire for more transportation options, to have those walkable communities. There was variation, of course, in the strength in which those results kind of came from those different subregions. So, some of those priorities were much stronger in certain areas over others, but overall they almost directly mirrored each other.
Anything you were surprised not to see in the survey results?
No, I was surprised with the amount of emphasis on urban. I thought for sure the environment would drive a lot of how we look at our community, but on kind of a shift on the subject, the thing that I think is most important is that there's some people that think what we're doing is IGT. This is what we believe. This is what we want out there. And this isn't. What we're doing, our job is to take all of this information and just honestly translate it. So it's what the community wants, not what IGT or our staff want. And I think that's an important part, because we often say IGT survey. No, it's not. It's the community's survey results.
Okay. And taking that forward, what's next? What will you do now that you know what their model is, how they'd like to see the area grow?
So what we're doing is taking those results and all of the information we've been gathering throughout this entire process and using that to craft a hybrid scenario, or a preferred future alternative, which, although that fourth alternative was clearly the most popular, or the one that got the most responses, is that hybrid is going to contain elements of each of those alternatives based on those other questions we asked. So it's not, here's this one choice, take it as is. Rather, it's trying to refine that down and get to that place where it meets the needs of this entire community.
And then once you have a plan put together, what happens to it?
Well, then we'll be working with jurisdictions, which we already are. And in fact, some of them are using the information that's coming up and putting together their own plans. And we'll be working with them and the other jurisdictions to put together policies and ideas that will help link us in developing this unified kind of approach to the future.
Anything you'd like to add, Patrick?
No, I think that's about right.
Perfect. All right. Well, people can get more information on your website online.
Yes.
You want to just give us the name of that?
It's
ImagineGreaterTucson.org. And if you'd like to dive into the survey results in a little more detail, you can go to the progress page, and you can look at it by subregion and individual question responses.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Most people who work on Monday are probably reluctant to add more responsibilities to their busy schedules once they leave their jobs. But a steady stream of dedicated Tucsonans are committed to extracurricular activities. They walk, run, or engage in other activities Monday nights during the Meet Me at Maynard's events in downtown Tucson. In tonight's video postcard from photographer and editor Eric Rodden.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I need a couple of loud yells first. How many of you have done this race before? Let me hear you. Good. It's kind of cool, isn't it? How many of you have never done a 5K before? All right, that's awesome. It's 10 miles. It's not that far. 3, 2, 1.
Go, guys, go! Keep moving!
Coming up tomorrow night, we'll have the results of the special election in Congressional District 8. Whatever happens, each of the main candidates says he is committed to moving on to the next election in a new district. Also, we'll tell you about an award in Southern Arizona for some of the best artists and their supporters. I'm Tony Paniagua. From all of us at Arizona Public Media, have a great night.